another DorkLair action figure review. Today I'm taking a look at the Frazetta Icons Collectibles Fire and Ice Darkwolf from Frazetta Girls. In the summer of 2023, the Frazetta Girls announced that they would be making action figures, not just licensing out for other companies to make figures, but making their own figures. And this is the first one. They will be making not only figures based on Fire and Ice, but I believe they will eventually be dipping into other Frazetta characters as well that aren't necessarily in Fire and Ice. I do know that the next one is Tigra, and supposedly they're going to be announcing that soon after this one is done shipping out and all that. So this is Darkwolf, and it's based more on the actual paintings than the movie representation of the character. So it's got a little more gritty realism than it would if it were going to be the movie version of it, which I prefer. I'm not particularly a huge fan of that movie. It's fine, but for me, it's more about the Frazetta artwork than the animation. And this figure was $70. I bought it directly from Frazetta Girls. I know that if you go and buy it on Big Bad Toy Store, it's $95, I believe. So a pretty hefty price either way you look at it for this figure. It does come with quite a few extra hands, and so it has a little bit of a premium feel to it. I'm not 100% convinced that this feels like a $70 figure, like when I compare it to other $70 to $100 figures like Mezco's and whatnot. This may not quite stack up, but on its own, without even considering price or anything like that, it's a solid figure, and it's a really good first start for a brand new company. Well, not a brand new company, but the first time this company is making figures. And here we are zoomed in on that head sculpt with that wolf mask on there, which is really creepy and weird in its own right. But, you know, it's got a cool badass look to it. It's almost got a Batman vibe, right? You get the half cowl with the lit up eyes. The eyes are sort of a yellowish green. I do unfortunately have some paint slop right there in his left eye. The sculpt work is fantastic. Credit to Aaron Doyle. The box has a nice little description of who did what. You also have Paint Masters by Matt O'Toole. The actual product photography was by my good friend Trevor Williams, and the whole production design and all of the design of the character and all that stuff was done by Eamon O'Donoghue. So it's pretty nice that they kind of credit everybody there on the packaging. And yeah, so kind of getting another closer look at the body here. Very muscular, lots of, the flesh feels textured and all that stuff. And it's kind of glossy, like he's sweating in battle. Then we have this neck piece that is removable with these bones and little tiny skull over here. And the belt is a really nice soft plastic here. And that works well because when you articulate the figure, the plastic can get out of the way. Even when it's crunching, it can crunch forward. But it doesn't take away, the softness doesn't take away from the excellent sculpt. And that is nicely painted. I know I have that issue with the eye, but the belt looks pretty darn good to me. I mean, even here where the fur sort of like overlaps and stuff, you can see where that little rim of gold metal is kind of coming through there and peeking out here and there as you work your way around. And then I look at the legs here, and one of the things I don't really love about the sculpt is the knees, and then you have this little flap on the front of the knee. I wish they could have done something a little bit different with that visually right there. Pretty simple on the boots, but there's a nice little dry brush to give it some kind of gritty realism there. And one thing that does happen with these is that these are a separate overlay piece, and so they are movable, and if you kind of push them up, you're gonna end up seeing the foot underneath there, and if you were to remove the foot, you would be able to remove that piece right there. But yeah, there's a look at the boots. So overall, like visually, I think it's great. I got a little paint issue up here. The head actually has swappable faceplates, so you can give them different expressions rather than having multiple head sculpts there. And yeah, so overall, a pretty good looking figure. And I do very much like the shape and size of this figure. Here it is all zoomed out so you can see that silhouette. And he stands just a hair shy of 7 inches tall, maybe right to the tip of the ears. It might be right at 7 inches. And starting off some comparisons with a couple Mythic Legions figures, I think it's going to scale really well with Legions. He's just slightly taller than them. On the left, we have a Xylernian Guard with a Von Berk head sculpt. And on the right, we have the classic Mythic Legions Barbarian. And next up, a couple Conan figures. On the left is the Super 7 movie Conan from the pit fight with a head swap, and on the right is the Mezco 112 Collective Conan the Barbarian, also based on Frazetta artwork, of course. And as you can see, that Mezco Conan is substantially shorter than Darkwolf. Here we have some other familiar lines. On the left is a Masterverse He-Man Kit Bash with a custom head sculpt by Monster Machine Creations, painted by Eric Miller, EM Custom Parts. And then we also have the Mafex Dark Knight Returns Superman, so that you can just get a sense of size with a few different lines. Here on the left, we have Animal Warriors of the Kingdom Tiberius, and on the right, we have a Storm Collectibles Skeleton, and I think, again, fits in really well with these two lines as well. And then here he is with some Hasbro figures, a little smaller scale, but I think he could probably even fit in with Marvel Legends. I know some Marvel Legends are pretty big, like he's probably right around the same size as a Thor figure, I would imagine. Lastly, a couple big boys. On the left is the T-Rex from Axie Toys, and on the right is the Minotaur from Zezre Studios. And I think these make great large-scale adversaries for Darkwolf. For accessories, it does come with a bow. This bow does have a string that has a little stretch to it. I wish it was more elastic like the Mythic Legions and the Mezco bows, because it feels a little tight over here. There's not really much detail on there. Same with the arrows, not too much detail. They're black. They do have a little silver, kind of weathering on there, but this is one of those places where, paint the fletching, paint the arrowheads, and that would gone a little bit further towards feeling like a $70 premium kind of figure. But they're fine. They're nice and straight, just simple black arrows. Next, we do have his long battle axe, and I do feel like they did a good job painting this. We have nice metallic weathered axe blade over here, and then you have like a wooden shaft that, it's painted like wood, metallic handle piece here, and then you have some wraps down here that that look like leather wraps. So the paintwork is pretty good on that axe, and I do like the shape of it. Looks pretty badass when he's wielding it. For hands, he has a pair of fists with horizontal hinges. He's got a pair of gripping hands with vertical hinges. He's got a pair of relaxed hands with horizontal hinges. He's got a pair of action gesturing hands with horizontal hinges. And he's got another gesturing or signaling hand. And again, I'm not super into the movie, so if there's a specific gesture that he makes in the movie with his hand and sort of this half claw move, let me know in the comments what he's doing there. And that's got a horizontal hinge. And he does have these two other faceplates, which I'll swap on. So all I got to do here is pop the head off, and that'll give you a look at what's underneath. So it's just got that double ball joint over here. And there's some action when you do it like this, but the head doesn't quite move a ton because of the shape of the mask here. It kind of gets in the way a little bit of movement. There's not a ton of movement in the head. We'll talk about that with articulation. But then this piece just, this is a pretty soft head here. Like all this plastic is soft. So this head, this like face or, lower mouth piece just pegs right in. And then we can take another one and then pop this one in here, just like that. And then boom, there you have the Screaming head sculpt. Pop that one on him right there. So you get that open mouth head sculpt, and the paint's kind of lacking in the mouth there. And again, this is the first figure for the company, so they definitely have some growth there where the paintwork is concerned on those little details. And personally, I do think I prefer the closed mouth one, mostly because the paint issues are not going to get involved there. It just looks fine. And for articulation, the head does turn all the way around if you'd like it to, and it can cock side to side a little bit, and it can look down a decent amount, and then it can look pretty much just straight ahead. It's not going to look up very much, but you can turn it to the side and you can get some up and down action poses. I do wish there was a little more range. When you see a double barbell like that, I don't know, I kind of expect a little bit more, but not too bad, all things considered. The shoulders have an interesting construction here. You have a hinge and swivel, but there's a swivel on the other side too. So like going into the shoulder, you also have a swivel. It's kind of hard to demonstrate how it moves, but you can see it when you're in this position. You can kind of see how it can rotate, right? Like it can rotate really well internally and externally, which you wouldn't be able to do if it was a solid piece coming out of the shoulder and then into the torso. So that's a kind of a neat little trick they did to get a little more articulation there, but also to completely hide it. It's kind of like what a lot of companies do, this figure included, with thigh cuts, where instead of a thigh cut mid-thigh, they do it all the way up at the top. Doing that here with the shoulder is kind of interesting to me. Then you do have a single jointed elbow that can come up past 90 degrees, so that's pretty good. And then that will swivel as well. I will say this, there are nice detents, and that gives it like a little bit of a ratcheted feel on that elbow there. So it feels nice and sturdy, but it doesn't feel too stiff either. And then we do have the hinges at the wrist, and those will swivel as well. And with the shoulder hinge, he can bring his arms out to 180 degrees, which gives us room to start working with that upper torso, which is excellent. And that is another double ball. So got a lot of crunch forward and back and swivel side to side, and just a lot of great range in that torso, which is very needed because below there's nothing. There's no like waist twist. There's no waist ball joint. There's nothing there. It's just a solid piece from mid torso down to the crotch. And then the legs are on a true ball joint there. So we're on that ball joint, and they can kick forward to, about what you would expect, and they can kick back just a little bit. They're getting stopped by the butt in the back here, so not a lot of backwards movement there. And they also, like I said, they have that twist at the top of the leg that's rather than a thigh cut, it's up top there. And then you have, similar to the elbows, you have these single jointed knees that can come up this far, and then there's a twist below the knee. There's no boot cut because this piece here is a separate piece that's just overlaid on top. I'll remove that in a minute. And then you do have an ankle rocker, hinge, and no twist on the ankle. Like with Mythic Legions, you also have that twist, and that's kind of a big deal. That makes a lot of extra movement and positioning with the figures. And one of the issues that will happen is, instead of being able to twist the foot, you have to twist the knee, and you might want to twist it inwards, and then you get them in this position like this, and it just looks kind of crazy with this piece, the little knee flap thing off to the side when you're trying to pose them. So one really good addition would have been a twist at the ankle. And then I'm just going to kind of like pop things apart so that you can see what all is removable on this guy. The hands pop off pretty easily, and then you have these wrist guards that will slide right off. And then the torso actually pops off pretty easily as well. And mine pops off at the lower joint there at the torso, and you can kind of see what's under there for a joint. And everything moved really well out of the box. You didn't really have any issues. And then you can slide that off here, and then you can see the lower torso. He does not have private parts. He's just got Ken doll under there. And there's a look at the bare body for all you customizers out there. Obviously, this being a $70 figure, it's probably not the best place to go looking for a body for your customs, but the figure itself, you could customize it and add different cloth parts, or maybe add the belt from the Mezco Conan, or mess around with it a little bit there. So some options for popping and swapping if you are so inclined. So overall, I do really like the figure. I think it does have its flaws, and I do think there are some growing pains that this company is going to have to go through. Understandably, it's their first run. I don't think it feels quite like a $70 to $100 figure. I know it's $70 direct and $100 pretty much on Big Bad Toy Store. So like, it doesn't quite hit that level of awesomeness for me. So I wish it were a little cheaper, and then I might feel more inclined to be like, oh man, this thing is amazing. But it does have its nice qualities. I do love the fleshy tones of the skin. It's got a nice dark skin tone too, which is, it's good to see on figures, like a nice little variety here. And then, I do love this belt skirt piece here and all that stuff. So, good figure, a little pricey. Thanks for watching my video, and until next time, may the force be with you.